Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Croaky. Croaky. That's all I can say. I do have a cough and a cold, and I'm not alone because Gary Muirhead has just had that for the past couple of weeks. I'm just getting over it. Fred had it the entire time that we were in Germany. Not major, just a tickly cough and everything else. And I thought I'd escaped, despite sharing a house with him. Thought I'd escaped. Came home. It got me. Steve Williamson is here as well. Speaking of Germany and all things Munich, Dan Cullen is here as well. Good morning, one and all. Gary Muirhead was first off the mark, 9:59 this morning. Jim Turner is here as well. Good morning, Jim. Let's have a look. Steve Williamson says cheese and pickle sandwiches this morning. I have to say it is my go-to sandwich. Not this early in the day though. Not this early in the day. I do love me a cheese and pickle sandwich, though, I have to say. Or, listen, if I'm really going to push the boat out, stick with the pickle, corned beef and pickle. Oh, Dan says that's really contagious. I should try not to breathe too hard into the microphone. Save you all from what I'm suffering. And Chris Ward's here as well. Morning. Morning, Chris. How are you doing? As says, morning, peeps. Good morning to everyone that's here, and even those that are silently watching from the background. Just want to get rid of my name from the screen because I think we're all friends together here, aren't we? Gary Muirhead says overnight oats for breakfast. I actually had overnight oats out of choice. I wasn't forced into it. When I stayed at the Liebherr Hotel, got up the following morning, the usual German breakfast, lots of eggs and sausages, cold meats, cold cheeses, yogurts, and everything else. But there, overnight oats, yum. Steve says I'd eat a steak or a big burger in the morning. I'm back to front. I like a bowl of cornflakes before bed. So do I. And I think that's probably a hangover from back when I was a drinker. You sort of roll in from the pub and couldn't figure out how the cooker worked, but you were hungry. So what did you go for? Cornflakes. And I've said this before. I've said it before, and I want to say it again. In the winter, cornflakes, hot milk, lots of sugar. In the summer, cornflakes, no sugar, cold milk. Yeah, there you are. Dan says that looks cool, that name. Yeah, well, I don't know why it keeps putting it back up. I think you will probably know who the hell I am at this point. Anyway, while my voice still holds up, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show underway. But only after I've said good morning to our friend Jonathan Duras, who's just joined us. Morning, Jonathan. Nice to see a bit of British engineering on your what do we call that? Your icon there. Gary Muirhead, kebab, the only thing you eat when you're drunk. Yeah, in actual fact, listen. This may just be a purely Surrey thing. We've got a couple of very upmarket sort of Turkish gaffs around here. There's one called Hanadan, which is good. There's another one just up the road from here called Taz, which it's a Turkish. It does shish kebabs and doner kebabs and all those kind of things. But you eat in. They make their own bread on site and everything else. Have to say, elevated the kebab, elevated the humble kebab they have. If you ever in this part of the world, go to Taz. You can thank me for it later. Anyway, I did promise that I was going to get the show underway. So I'm going to post the outro and the question of the day and get the show on the road. It is Wednesday, the 16th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, Case makes an impact. A fleet of Hydrema backhoe loaders goes to work. KTEG and Hitachi join forces to create a new breed of mini excavator. And in our Breakfast Show at Bauma segment, we're going to be touring the stand of Mecalac. Plus, in my morning monologue, what did we learn at Bauma 2025? But before we get to all of that, there is a small matter of our mystery machine, which will be along right after this. Right, Mystery Machine. It's been a bit of a mixed bag this month, I can tell you. Dan Cullen's got a couple of wins under his belt. I've got a couple. Jim Turner's got one. Peter McKenna's got one that he shared with Dan. So, yeah, a bit of a mixed bag, and it's still early doors. We're only on the 16th of April, so there's plenty of room to go, or plenty of time to go. Let's have a look at today's Mystery Machine. It looks like this. Yeah. Any clues on what that might be? I don't even know why I bother saying it these days. I'm going to tell you, but anyway, we are looking for a make and a model, if you would be so kind. I'm going to say good morning to Mark Fitz over on Instagram, who's just joined us as well. Morning. Just seeing if there's anybody else there that I recognise. The Demo MC and Bob Newman over on Instagram as well. Anybody's got any clues on what that machine might be, please let us know in the chat. While you're figuring that out, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Forgive the spelling of you. I don't know what went wrong there, but it was an early start. Our question of the day today comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And his question is this: who do you look up to and why? Now, personally, I've given up looking up to most people. There's not a political or religious leader I trust to walk my dogs. Sportsmen are mostly spoiled brats, and with the notable exception of Keanu Reeves, perhaps, celebrities now appear to achieve fame despite having deeply flawed personalities. So none of them. I'm going to go a wee bit closer to home. I'd say I look up to Adrian McLean, current president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. Also look up to John Woodward, former president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. I also look up to Dr. Terry Quarmby, former president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. I think you can see a pattern developing here. And I also look up to Richard Dolman, former president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers. I admire them all for very different reasons, but they're my top picks for folks to look up to, certainly in a work context. What have you got? Who do you look up to and why? Gary Muirhead says, people he looks up to, people who've come from nothing, had nothing to, then going on to make a success of themselves and became rich through hard work. Yeah, I do like the rags to riches story. I really do. Any life story that could be played to the Rocky music, I'm all about that. I think that's a fantastic answer. Let me go back to the mystery machine, which looks like this, and we've got Jim is going for, I'm guessing that's a Bauma roller. It's not. Dan Collins going for the Wolf WZ4527. No, it's not one of those. Excuse me. Let me take that out of the way and show you a smidge more. There you are. There's a bit of front end there. Does that help at all? Make a model. And while you're doing that, don't forget, we're looking for details of who you look up to, and more specifically, why do you look up to them? Is there a celeb out there you think, yeah, they seem pretty damn decent? As I say, Keanu Reeves, I'd certainly, let's put it like this, if I bumped into Keanu Reeves, I'd be more than happy to buy him a beer and tell him what a good chap he is. Not just because of John Wick and Bill and Ted and stuff. Now, I think just got interesting rather. Jonathan Duras reckons that our mystery machine is a Bergman dumper. You're very close. But what we need is a model. While we're talking about it, there you are. There's a little bit more. We need a model to go with that. But well spotted, Jonathan. That's top work, my friend. Anyone's got any ideas what model that might be, please let us know. While you're doing that, I'm going to get the show underway properly. Over the past, I don't know, best part of a decade, I guess, Case have got very adept at introducing some concept machines and prototypes. You might remember the Project Tetra back in the day. You might also remember the Project Zeus. Well, how about the Case Impact, which is the latest? Take a look at this. Pretty sexy looking, right? I can tell you, Ken Hatcher says Case always had a good design team. They certainly did, and still do. I can tell you, we do have a winner. We have a winner on our mystery machine. Jonathan Duras went for the Bergman C807. It's not. Dan Cullen, oddly enough, went for exactly the same thing. Over on Instagram, however, the Demo MC. Feels weird calling you that, but maybe drop me your real name so I can call you by your name. But I can tell you that the correct answer is the Bergman C810. That's what it is. Demo MC, take a bow. You have got the right answer. And just to prove it, come along now. There you are. The Bergman C810. Do excuse me. If you were watching very, very closely yesterday, when I was doing one of the stand walkarounds, you might remember that I actually walked past one of those. There you are. And the Demo MC, his real name is Alex. Alex, congratulations. I've just given you your 3 points. You're, depending how you look at it, you're tied fourth, which also means you're tied last. But don't take that personally. There's lots of people that have taken part and have got no points at all. So you're doing okay. And Dan Cullen says, nice looking dumper. Chris Ford reckons Mystery Machine could have been a JCB 542-100. It is not. It is the Bergman C810. Somebody just said, Service Warren C. Alf de Bauma in München. I'll have to copy in that and put it into Google Translate. If you're asking if I was at Bauma, I was. I absolutely was. Let me copy that, and I'll come back to you when I know exactly what it is you're saying. Ken Hatcher says, never seen one of those dumpers in my life. They are around. And Jonathan Duras saying, the case looks smart. It does indeed. We've got more smart coming up for you in the not too distant future. But we'll be right back after this with Hydrema.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, Hydrema. This we are still sticking with the whole Bauma shtick. This has got nothing to do with Bauma whatsoever, but I did think it was a very good video. So take a look. Right, okay, so first of all, Ken Hatcher says he hasn't seen a Bergman dumper in the wild. Alfred Alex, the Demo MC, says, for the guy who's never seen one, the C912 is awesome. Coolest track dumper on the market, in my opinion. I would need to look that one up. The German speaker, Service Warren C. Alf de Bauma in München, that is Servus, Servus. We're at Bauma. I didn't come across you. I apologise. There's lots of stands that I missed. Can only apologise for that. Dan Cullen is going back to work, but he's listening in. Good to hear it. He also says that Ken needs to get out more. Chris Ford couldn't been further away from the answer if I tried. Not a problem at all. And Gary Muirhead says, when is the next After Dark show going to be? It's a good question. We've got, let me think. I'm speaking to 4 different guests at the moment, and it's a matter of which one comes up with the goods first. There are going to be plenty. And I also My other half is going away in in May, so I just may do a Saturday show and see how long we can go for. I'm making no promises, but we'll see how it all pans out. But Gary, don't trust me. The nighttime shows will return just as soon as I've shaken the effects of Bauma off of my throat, my brain, my feet, everything else. We have got coming up, something from one of my favorite companies right after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Chris Ford says, all this food is making me hungry. Note to self, don't have a large Mackie D at 11:30 at night and expect to sleep well. No, it's fair comment. Gary Muirhead says, I'm going away in May too, but don't tell my wife. Shh. I don't want to say a word. Not going to say a word. Christine, you didn't hear it from me. Yes, KTEG. You already know that I'm a big fan of the KTEG brand, and I absolutely am. Predominantly because of the work that they do in the field of demolition. For those of you that don't know, basically KTEG started life as the Hitachi dealer for Germany. But they've got very, very good at modifying machines. So good, in fact, that some of the Hitachi machines on the Bauma stand this time around and last time were actually KTEG developed machines, but they had the Hitachi badge on them. So, I mean, if Hitachi think you're doing a good job, you're doing a good job. Anyway, they have now done a bit of a joint venture. This time, not on a demolition machine, but on a mini excavator. Get your eyeballs around this.
Today, I'd like to introduce our new 6-ton class machine called 63 US 2-piece boom. This was developed by KTEG and great collaboration with our mother factory in Japan, coming April Bauma 2025. This machine is tough and versatile, and this is the perfect machine for tool carrier, be able to use various front attachments at job site without any stress. As you can see, this machine has got great strong design of a 2-piece boom. This 2-piece boom gives a great performance of lifting capacity. It is 30% stronger than our Hitachi 55U and also 15% stronger than our Xaxis 65 USB. This 2-piece boom has a tremendous cutting height and damping height. It is 30 to 40% better than 5-ton, 6-ton U-type machine. And because of US type side boom, we have a great visibility from right side of the window. Also, this US type side boom makes short swing action together with boom and arm, and this makes the perfect machine at confined space. If we look at the rear side, additional counterweight of 280 kilo makes great performance of machine stability. If we look at the cabin, instead of foot pedal, all functions are now available from joystick to have a more efficient and ergonomic workflow. And also we remove foot pedal on the right side to have more space inside of the cabin. There are lots of new features inside of the cabin on show at Bauma.
So, Gary Muirhead asks, so KTEG have made the boom. I would imagine they've done more than that. They normally get a bit more involved in that. Dan Cullen says, geez, that looks an awesome bit of kit for a mini digger. And then going over to our friend Alex, the demo MC. The Tab Boom Mini is great, but the KTEG modular boom joint on the demo machines is hands down the ugliest design in the game. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I take your point. Jonathan Doris says KTEG converts some very interesting equipment for demolition rigs. Very impressive they are. I mean, they're not a frontline manufacturer as such, but I have to say their bit of I'm saying this as a demolition type of guy. Their bit of the Hitachi stand was one of the most impressive. A real hard decision. I mean, I have done a bit of a rundown of my favourite machines, which I will be bringing you at some point at Bauma. But it was a real toss-up. Some of the stuff that KTEG had done with Hitachi, awesome. The new straight boom Cabelco, the SK300, a fantastic bit of kit. The latest Develon, like a scaled down high reach. Good for 3 floors and not much more than that, but a cracking bit of kit. And there was a pair of absolute belting demolition machines over on the Liebherr stand as well. So very hard to pick between all of those. I think if I was spending my own money, I'd probably go Liebherr because I do have a bit of a soft spot, but I'm unlikely to buy a demolition machine. So I'm kind of going for all of those, all of the above, and probably a few more as well. We are going to be heading back to Bauma in just a second to have a bit of a mooch around the Mecalac stand right after this. Said this before, but I will. It's worth reiterating because I do genuinely believe it. Of all of the stands at Bauma, there are two. There are two that I'm drawn to. Not well, the quality of the products is there, no question about it. But I'm drawn more by their quirkiness. The first of those is Wackenlisten because they kind of do things over slightly to one side of the norm. The other one is Mecalac. So I broke out the camera. And despite the fact that there's copyrighted music playing in the background, which hopefully I've largely covered up, even though I was enjoying it at the time, I want to take you for a walk around the Mecalac stand. Welcome back to the Breakfast Show at Bauma 2025. We're on our way over to see the Mecalac stand. Always an interesting one. So stick with us. Okay, first one on the Mecalac stand, the 15 MRW. Freaky looking, but very, very impressive. The 8 MCR, one of my favourite machines at the show, actually. There's a 12 MRX, as you can see. Mecalac, like everybody else, is embracing electric technology. We'll probably get done for copyright, but can hear Rammstein in the background, which seems a wholly appropriate band to be playing in Germany. There you go, electric dumper as well. This is their demo area. I'm hoping to get back to here a bit later on in the day. Let's swing round. Here's the ES1000, another electric machine. I have to say, I love the paint job on these electric machines. Almost chrome. The EMWR. I don't know why I need to keep apologising for these things. I'm making these up as I go along, as you can probably tell. There's a 7 MWR as well. Going over to the Revo truck. And then on to some of the smaller machines in the range. And even though I could listen to Rammstein all day, that pretty much concludes our look around the Mecalac stand. There you are, Mecalac with with accompaniment by Till Lindemann and the Ramstein crew. Gary Muirhead said, if I was spending more imaginary demolition money, it would have to be Marco Lorini's conversion. The work and build quality from this company is amazing. Couldn't argue with that. Tom McCurley says, a raise of hands. Does anyone listen to these people? Which people? If you mean me, nobody listens to this old nonsense. But please let us know. Tom, you're over on Facebook. Does anyone listen to these people? Could well mean me. Who the hell knows? Chris Ford says, question of the day, which is, who do you look up to and why? He says, anyone that builds a business from scratch and succeeds. Totally agree. Totally agree. I do want to say a very belated good morning to Ed Butler. Have I seen Ed since Bauma? Don't think I have. I said it to his face and I'll say it again. The display that Ed and Steve put on in Bauma did Kinsoffer proud, did the show proud, but most of all, I think, did them proud as well. Obviously, both good operators, and I'm sure there's lots of other very good operators out there. But what they add to it is the audience interaction. Dropping hats onto children, handing out sweets to children, but playing the crowd, really playing the crowd and drawing them in, making them feel part of the display. Top job. Steve, Ed, you did yourselves proud. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I am going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around. I'll be back after this. I do need to read you this. Alex, the demo MC, has just said, the Lorini machine is just a Devilon or a Develon in a flash tuxedo. That's what he said. Thanks for that, Alex. I've written a piece for today with a title, something along the lines of Bauma 2025 is over. But what did we learn? But I'm going to leave that till tomorrow because I'd like to tell you a personal story instead. It's not a cheery one, so if you would like to go and do something else, please feel free. When my when my oldest son Ollie was about 3 years old, he was in a nativity play at his nursery. It was clearly a very traditional nativity play because he was playing the part of Pinocchio. I know. Appearing alongside him in an equally pivotal role as a bush or a gate or something was a quiet little boy of the same age. Pinocchio and the gate became fast friends, and they would remain so for years to come. Even when they attended different high schools, their friendship remained strong. And when they both emerged from education, they would go on holiday together. They were best friends in every sense of the word. Yesterday afternoon, my son's best friend of almost 30 years took his own life. He's 32 years old. There's a lot to unpack with this story, and you'll forgive me if I don't mention the poor guy by name. It's a bit too soon, a bit too raw, and I think his family and friends are still coming to terms with it. He was always the quiet one. In fact, when he was very young, I gave him the nickname Mumble. But over the years, he grew in confidence. He was really, really smart. He started work as a financial controller at HSS Hire over in Mitcham, but he quickly outgrew that and ended up with a high ranking and a very highly paid job with a financial institution. I will admit, I guess with the benefit of hindsight, he could be a bit obsessive at times. He and my son started going to the gym when they were, 16, 17. And while my son got bigger, bulkier, his friend got ripped. He had the full 6-pack of abs. He was a keen gamer, and he would clock up thousands of hours attempting to beat each new game as it came out. He got into Formula One. In fact, he was supposed to be going to the British Grand Prix later this year with my son. He was one of those people for whom taking part was never enough. He needed to excel, to be the best. There's another thing I need to point out. He wasn't what you might imagine, given that the way the story turns out. I don't remember him ever going through the teenage dirtbag phase. I don't remember him growing his hair, sporting a beard. In fact, I don't even recall seeing him wearing a hoodie. He was clean cut, the sort of guy you'd be happy for your daughter to bring home. And as he got older, his self-confidence grew. In fact, he was here a month or two ago, and he was absolutely the centre of conversation. So much so that when he left, I actually remarked to my wife how far removed he was from Mumble of old. He had his demons, though. His obsessive and driven personality meant that he could be hard on himself at times. And although I never saw it myself, he was apparently prone to bouts of depression. Both of my two boys reported that. But nothing at all could have prepared us for what the poor guy went through over the past few months. A couple of months ago, he suffered a full-on psychotic episode that was so severe that his mother and his sister had him sectioned, not once, but twice. Both my sons were visiting him on a regular basis, and there were actually some signs that he was on the mend. But those were followed by more episodes that proved that maybe he wasn't. He kind of convinced himself that he was never going to be allowed back into society. He even attempted to give my eldest son money on the basis that he wouldn't be needing it himself. And he also told his friend, another friend, that he wanted to see him one last time. And when my eldest son visited him a week ago or thereabouts, the guy just laid on the floor in the fetal position and just wanted a hug. With the benefit of hindsight, all those snippets, all those little incidents and comments kind of now feel more meaningful than they did at the time. Yet throughout all of this, none of us, including his family and his closest friends, none of us believed for one moment that he was a suicide risk until yesterday, when it was too late. The poor guy was clearly in such mental and emotional pain that he could only see one way out. Against that background, I'm glad his suffering is at an end, but I do wish he could have just stuck it out with the medication, trusted the process, trusted the doctors, because he still had one hell of a lot left to live, a lot of living left to do. I am sorry for burdening you with all this. I know this isn't why you tune in each morning, but there's one more thing that I wanted to share. And maybe it's just bad luck, bad fortune. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, my mum's dad, died when I was 19 years old. His was the first funeral I ever attended, and I didn't attend another one until I was well into my 40s. I wasn't avoiding them. They just didn't happen. My eldest son has already attended 3 this year, and he's about to do another one. Now, that statistic has nothing whatsoever to do with suicide. His friend was the only one to have taken his life, and a couple of the people that the other funerals were quite old. But I'm now of an age where people I know, people I grew up with, seem to be dying with some regularity, but that shouldn't be happening to someone in their early 30s. My son's not lived here for a year or more now. I see him every couple of days or thereabouts. But he came home last night. Not to stay, but he came home last night. Because I guess, he wanted to be among people that knew his friend. And so a bunch of them that all grew up together, went to school together, went to nursery school together, lived a couple of doors away from each other. They're all getting together today. So 3 of my 4 kids, I think, are going, plus some locals as well. 32 years old. Nothing to do with construction. He was nothing to do with the construction industry. And I know there's a lot of talk about suicide in construction and whether construction plays a role in pushing people to that point. Personally, I believe there is. But I also think that's academic. It doesn't actually matter what pushed somebody over the edge. I'll tell you, I won't go into the details, but one of the problems that this guy had with this psychotic episode, he'd got himself convinced that basically there was about to be a Russian invasion. And rather than worrying for himself, he'd basically gone to his mother's and his sister to make sure that they were safe. And I think, ultimately they did the right thing, and they had him sectioned because he clearly wasn't thinking rationally at that point. But they did everything within their power. They took him to the right place. He was on medication to try and get his brain to settle down, not start, going off at tangents. They did everything in their power, and I'm sure the medical professionals did exactly the same thing. Now, I've seen suicide up close a couple of times now. First time when I was 11, saw the victim of a suicide on the railway tracks. Told you that before. And my old business partner took his own life a good few years ago now. And one of there's two things I think that I've learned about suicide. The first is, if they've made up their mind to do it, there is precious little that you or anyone else can do to stop them. If they've got that in their mind, they will find a way. And the second one, and I think this was more specifically the case with my old business partner, was at the point that you're about to do that. And bear in mind, my old business partner was happily married with 6 children. And he had got it into his head that he was, at that point, so worthless that they'd be better off without him, which quite clearly was not the case. I think when you've got to that point, you are basically suffering a mental illness where, reality exists here and you're somewhere over here. You're not seeing things clearly. For the sake of hanging on for that little bit longer, both my business partner and my son's best friend would probably still be here. I don't know how you pull somebody back from the brink. As I say, with this one, there was no indication whatsoever that we were heading towards this. Having been in and out of institutions for a couple of months, I was starting to wonder if he was going to be not locked up. I mean, I don't think he was ever of a danger to anyone else. But I did wonder if he was going to come out, and if he came out, was he going to be, the guy that we knew before? And I'd kind of resigned myself, and was trying to prepare my kids to the fact that maybe he might not come out, and if he was, he would likely be changed. But at no point did any of us see this coming. So yeah, I will do the thing that I've written about Bauma and stuff. But I went to bed last night, I don't know, 11 o'clock, after 11, something like that. Laid awake thinking about the guy. Like I say, 32 years old. I've known him since he was 3. Woke up a couple of times in the night. Can't get his face out of my head. So yeah, not much more I can say on all that. I am going to go over to the chat because it is pinging away here. Gary Muirhead says, "I'm so sorry to hear of his loss. Remember you telling us he was struggling with stuff in life. Rest in peace, my friend." Yeah, he was. But again, I mean, I think one of the issues that he was having was that his brain was just running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I think that's where he got this idea of the Russians coming to get him. I mean, at one point he told my son that, this all that was going on with, trade wars and Donald Trump, he wanted Donald Trump to give him a phone call so that he could sort it out for him. His brain was going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and they were trying to medicate to get that overactivity, that hyperactivity down. Was he taking the medication? I don't know. And one of the things that my wife said last night, if they were giving him tablets and he wasn't taking them, should that not be an injection? As I say, I'm not blaming the medical professionals. I'm sure they did everything in their power, but you do start to look for something to cling on to, don't you? Gary says depression is so easy to get but hard to get out of. I've also lost too many good friends too, and I wish I could have said or done something to stop it. I think death and bereavement it's always about those that are left behind, but I think those that are left behind by a suicide, you do immediately. My son, he had a couple of days away this week with his girlfriend. I mean, literally a couple of days, and I'm not talking about a week. I mean, like 2 days, something like that. But he's now kicking himself. Could I have visited him one more time? Could I have said something that might have brought him back from the brink? It wouldn't have made any difference. I think in his heart of heart, he knows that. But you're then left thinking, could I have done more? I'm sure his parents are thinking exactly the same. We had him sectioned. Would he have been better off in the family home? Probably not. Almost certainly not. Sorry. Gary says, but like one of the families had said, there was nothing any of us could have done for them. And for a long time after, I used to beat myself up about it. Yeah. Mick says, when we all see the signs of somebody screaming out for help, do we really see them, or do we just think of the way they was and hope they'll pull themselves out of the dark place they walked into? True enough, we all try to help no matter what. If someone has decided to take their own life, and no matter what we do, they lose the ability to listen to anyone but the voice in their head. I can see you're hurting, mate, but just remember the good things are. Yeah, I will. I mean, it will take a while. I mean, I kind of, in some ways, kind of feel not guilty because he was in on the joke, but for a while he's literally, if he phoned me because he couldn't get hold of one of my kids, his name on my phone was Mumble because he sort of coming in, shuffling into the corner and didn't want to say too much. He just tucked himself away, but that had all gone, and he'd absolutely blossomed as a grown up, blossomed. Jonathan Duras says mental health issues are an epidemic these days, and unfortunately, it's getting overlooked. But so sorry to hear that. Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. It is getting overlooked. One of the things that struck me, and I was the same, so I'm not blaming him for this. My eldest son really struggled to understand what this guy was going through, despite all the publicity that mental health and suicide gets these days. How openly we talk about mental health awareness. My son doesn't get it. It's like, what's up with him? He's sitting on a small fortune. He's got a nice car, decent life, blah 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 blah. When you get yourself wrapped up like that, none of that matters. None of it matters. Dr. Yvonne Waterman says, consider yourself hard, Mark. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you very much indeed, Yvonne. Yeah, much appreciated. Jim Turner says, suicide, definitely a mental illness. We as a species are pre-programmed to try and survive. As daft as it may sound, it's a wonderful life. Could be a good way to show people how worthy they are to everyone around them. I've never thought of it like that. It is my favourite film. Well, that or Jaws, for very different reasons. And you're right. That vision of what life would be like had you not made it or had you not been born. It is, and I've never thought of it like that. I mean, I watch it because I think it's a fabulous film, but the underlying thing there, you're absolutely right. Yvonne says, I've lost a friend that way too. Depression is hard to understand to an outsider, but a very real, very serious pain to the person concerned. Thank you for sharing. We can always at least try to be kinder and more helpful to the people around us. Yeah, if you can be anything, I guess, be kind. It's not a hard thing to do, is it? Jim said, well, Jim, listen, me as well. I didn't get the whole mental health thing until my mate done herself in. Now I'm very conscious of it. Yeah. And I think once you've been exposed to it, which is one of the things that I find so hard with this, as I say, I watched what my old business partner went through. And he was a depressive type of guy. He only had two moods. He had a white one and a black one. If he was in the white one, everything was right in the world. If he was in the black one, you may as well just stay away because he wanted nothing to do with you. So with hindsight, I probably should have seen that there were underlying issues there, even though he had nothing to have issues about. But even being armed with that, even though I've interviewed people that have, lost people to suicide, even though I'd like to consider myself a bit of an advocate for all things mental health awareness, at no point did I foresee that this one was going to turn out like that. Maybe I should have done. I don't know. Anyway, folks, what we got there? Gary Muirhead says, I'm sure I read somewhere that the suicide figures are on the rise in our industry. We really need to be doing more to help our brothers and sisters of our community. Yeah. And I know we're always told about the importance of talking to each other, and I know I tend to spout forth about the stress that this industry and that our hierarchy puts upon those that work within the industry. But I'll go back to the thing that everybody always says in the aftermath of these things. Nobody knows what somebody else is going through. You know, when I was having my funny half hour, I was holding down a steady job, you know, doing what I've done forever. Nobody, include. Listen, I've been happily married now for nearly 35 years. Nobody, including my wife, including my children, knew a thing because I wanted it that way. I mean, I was never, ever, ever suicidal. Didn't want to hurt myself. Didn't want to hurt anyone else. But I did very seriously contemplate going somewhere else. Not doing away with myself, but going somewhere else because I got it into my head that I'd become a bit of a burden. Wasn't the case, but I'd got that into my head. And the last people that I felt that I could go to were the very people that did eventually pull me out of it. You know, I didn't want to confront with my family the fact that I believed that I'd failed them. And I became very, very good at, you know, putting up a facade of me. No, I'm absolutely fine. Nothing wrong here. Nothing to see here. When in actual fact, yeah, there was. Took a year of medication, came out the other end, and there's the other frustration. You know, maybe if he could have stuck with the medication for a bit longer and trusted the doctors, trusted the professionals, trusted the process of putting him back on the straight and narrow, maybe he could have turned it all around. We'll never know, I guess. Mick says, had a couple of my army mates commit suicide after 40 years of leaving the army. One left a letter and it was determined after he had PTSD after 40 years. So wrong, no one sees it until it's too late. Yeah. Because you erect a facade, don't you? You know, and again, I know this is a cliche in demolition and construction circles, but you know, when you ask somebody, "How you doing?" "I'm all right." No, how are you really doing? And sometimes it's that second time of asking that somebody goes, "Actually, I'm not doing particularly well. You know, I've got problems at home. I've got problems financially. You know, mum's got dementia or whatever it might be." That's the point that they may well open up. I don't know. I'm going to say Luis Raul Gandara says animo. I don't know what animo means, but good morning. And bom dia. I don't. Is that Spanish or is that Spanish or is that Portuguese? I don't know. But good morning anyway. Right, people. I'm going to go and suck on a locket or. Yes, if somebody wants to tell me I'm sucking on a fisherman's friend, feel free. It would lighten the mood a little bit. I will be back tomorrow. The piece that I'd written for today is really quite good. I'm quite pleased with it, but I didn't think it was anywhere near as important. So yeah, apologies for burdening you all with that. I will be back tomorrow, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I'll tell you all about what we should have learned at Bauma. Mick says, got to say to all you on here, you lot help make my day, even if we talk BS. Sometimes that's the best. You know, I do occasionally dabble with golf, which is a different game entirely, but my favourite pastime is fishing. And I'll go fishing with, you know, a mate or one of the boys or whatever. Excuse me. And part of the deal with that, obviously, you know, sitting there just not thinking about anything, but also just talking nonsense to your mates. I'm a big fan of talking nonsense to your mates. Luis Raul Gandara says, Un saludo desde el Estado Grande, Chihuahua, Chihuahua, condicione mi amigo. I'm going to have to copy that and work out what that means because I don't actually know what any of that means. But yeah, I'll come back to you. But thank you for the comment anyway. People, go and have a good day. I do need to go and do something with my throat before it packs up entirely. Back tomorrow, 10 a.m. for more of the same. thanks for listening, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Tristan Mays says, love you, Mark. Keep up the good work. Cheers, pal. Much appreciated. And Jim Turner says, a problem shared is a problem halved. Cheers, Jim. Yeah, that's, to be honest, that's kind of why I shared it. I'm talking to friends. Yvonne says, what's she got? This is part of life too. Thank you for sharing it with us. Don't shy away from talking about the difficult things. Never will. Never will. It's good to moan and empty the head. As you well know, my head is empty most of the time. And Gary says, well said, Mick, we've got an amazing community here. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And I'm immensely proud of each and every one of you. So people, go and have a good day. Do me one small favour, will you? When you've finished listening to me babbling on, take a look to your left and take a look to your right. Have a look at the people around you. And for me, make sure they're all right, would you? Thanks. I'll see you tomorrow.